Welcome, everybody. My name is Jared Palmer. I'm the lead engineer at the Palmer Group. We're at React Europe 2019 with Josh Comeau, software engineer from Khan Academy.
Yep.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So you gave an amazing talk about animation. And I guess the first thing is, why is it important to animate in your application?
Right.
Like, kind of a primitive question, but
No.
fundamentally, why?
No, I think that's a question that a lot of people have because I think it's so easy to cut it because, I think that so often is the case. We have all these grand ambitions for what we want to do when we're working, and we have a deadline that looms, and then we realize that, oh, shoot, we're 2 weeks behind where we want to be. And so often the first thing that gets cut is animation because I think people don't recognize the significance that it has. There's a lot of different angles to why it's important. One is just that it helps. I think probably the most important is that it helps your product feel real. It adds a certain legitimacy because Facebook and Twitter and all the, Google even to an extent, they all really focus on making really high quality animations. And this is especially true on native mobile apps. The web is kind of lagging behind a little bit. And so something that I talked about was that I like the idea of the web still being around. And while it may sound hyperbolic to say that animations are the key to that, I think it's a non-trivial contributing factor.
Sure. I mean, the animation engines on native iOS and native Android are more powerful in many respects, right?
Yeah.
So... And you're totally right. When it comes time, it's crunch time, you're finishing your sprint, you're like, am I going to animate this? I don't know.
Right.
So how do you deal with, first of all, how do you know what to animate, and how do you know what is okay to, let's say, skip?
Yeah. So there's definitely a trade-off of there are certain animations that I think are pretty low value for how much effort they are.
Right.
Ironically, in my talk, I showed an accordion animation, and to me, the standard accordion where everything zooms out is actually really hard to do because you have to figure out the height of that thing that you have to expand to. And I don't know that it adds that much value. For me, I think that the animation comes down, there's two main important styles of animation. One that I think is more universally agreed is whether the animation helps the user understand what they're doing. So if the animation provides context, right? Okay. So one example of that is if the form doesn't work, or let's say you're logging in, you have the wrong password. If the form, Stripe has this cute thing where the form shakes.
Yep.
Stuff like that, it's not only is it cute, but it informs the user.
Yeah.
The second type that I'm particularly passionate about is whimsy. And for me, this is just about the fact that it's fun when products that you use spark a little bit of joy or surprise you in some way.
Marie Kondo animation.
Totally. And I also think that there's real value to having applications that draw some sort of emotional response. And I think that we see the dark side of this a lot. Everything on Facebook is negative because people share things that frustrate them and that draws people in. But the positive side of that is also true. If something makes you a little bit happy, it's stickier, you remember it.
Yeah,
more
the like button animation is ridiculous. It's funny though, right? Or especially in Messenger, right? You press it, and it expands and it pops. It's kind of whimsy.
Right.
It's fun though.
Totally. And that's the thing, is it sticks in your mind and it's fun to use. In terms of knowing what's important to animate, I think that for myself, I'm not really a designer. I play one on TV kind of thing.
Okay, right.
But I do think that often, at least in the places that I've worked, design and product, they have all these ideas, and it's just about working with them and just developing our own skill sets to know how to implement things. I think that once we get comfortable with that, we can start thinking, and especially if we have side projects where we're doing everything, we have to develop the skills to know how to use them. But I think the first step is just let's increase the scope or increase the number of tools in my toolbox that I can reach for when I want to implement something.
It's also possible to over-animate.
Oh, yeah.
I guess the example that a lot of people tend to use is Facebook's Paper app from a couple years back, where everything was animated. I don't know if you ever played with this app. No?
I didn't.
Okay, so never mind. It was
there are definitely times where there's just superfluous animations that get in your way. And a good example of that is when especially when animations take too long. It's you're trying to do something and you have to wait the half second for the stupid animation to complete. I feel the solution that I think I have to that I don't see used a lot is just to, we always assume that every experience needs to be the same, but why don't we track how many times the person has been to our product? And if we have this very large flourish thing that we know is going to delight people the first time but be really annoying by the 10th and the 20th time, why don't we just create 2 versions of that and then choose which one to show based on if the person's seen it before, if they've seen it more than 3 times, for example.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect role, right? But that requires your backend engineer to give you some sort of ability to flag that off, and
you could use local storage in a pinch, but that is true. If you have an app that's used on multiple devices, then that's
But yeah, it makes total sense, right? Sometimes you want to introduce something and you just want to do it in this long, grandiose fashion, and then maybe over time shorten it up. It's a great point. So what are some low-hanging fruit ways people can find resources or get informed about animation? Where do you go for that? Like, how do you stay up to date with it?
Well, the cool thing about doing front-end web is that while view source isn't as useful as it used to be because everyone concatenates and minifies and all that, you can still get a fair, clear idea of what an animation is doing by just inspecting it, because you can like right-click on it and inspect and then see what that node is doing. Watch in the element inspector to see what the style, because usually the stuff is all, or not usually, often the stuff is done through inline styles. So you can see how it works. So my strategy is really just to, like, if I see something that I like, figure out how to do it and like try to replicate it myself.
Yeah.
In terms of like that, but that's not super low effort.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like there's people like Sarah Drasner that spend a lot of time putting really great resources out to help people get comfortable with this stuff. And yeah, I think that, and like I also think that there's probably a good answer to the question of like, what are some low-lift ways people can just like add a bit of whimsy immediately? But I think it's so dependent on what the person is building that it wouldn't be super valuable for me to just like
That makes sense.
pull out.
Where do you look for, or who do you think is doing animation like best practices on the web right now?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It may be isolated to a specific page of a specific product team, whatever.
Yeah,
but
Stripe I think is like one of the strongest organizations that does this, because everything on Stripe is so meticulously crafted, and a lot of it is just not only like through the Stripe dashboard product, but their splash pages are just amazing.
Yeah.
They always have they have these like 3D shapes that are rotating in space. And all the like product demos that they have on those splash pages, they like have a multi-step process of going through how to use the thing, and it's all like just ridiculously well done.
Yeah.
So the people at Stripe, I think, is the shout out that I have for that.
Well, yeah, that's awesome. So how can people follow you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. That's probably the best way. It's Josh W. Comeau. My last name is French, so it's spelled Comeau.
Very cool. And are you giving any more talks in the next few months?
Yeah, I'm going to be at React Rally in August, and I'll
Very
also be talking about animation performance.
Ooh, well, definitely have to check that out. Again, thanks for joining us. We're here at React Europe 2019. My name is Jared Palmer. This is Josh Comeau, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome.